So this year, you decided to start gardening, but you had a hard time finding seeds. You found some, maybe even some transplants, but what you were really looking for wasn't there. Well, I'm going to tell you 4 seeds you can save right now in September 2020 to keep you in seed for next year. All right, let's go. I'm Doc. Welcome to my garden. Now, if you're like a lot of people in 2020, you decided to start a garden for the first time, or maybe you're coming back to gardening. In fact, Thanksgiving of last year, 2019, I decided I was going to restart my garden again. I hadn't done it in about 4 or 5 years because life got in the way, but I realized I missed it. So I went to the store like anybody else to get seeds. I had to create a whole new garden, which this is. This is its very first season, and I couldn't find seeds. I couldn't find transplants. I actually couldn't find toilet paper or paper towels or chickens. People hoard really strange things. But listen, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, what am I going to do next year? What am I going to do if this continues and I can't find seed again? Well, here's the way to do it. There are certain things you can grow in your garden. It's September now, and some things should be coming to an end. Some of those are peas, peppers, eggplants, tomatoes, all kinds of different things. And there's 4 very, very easy to save seeds that are probably ripe or close to ripe in your garden right now that you can save for next year and never have to worry about that again. So let's take a look at them. First on the list, beans. Now, these are purple whole peas. I know what you're saying, Doc, you said beans. Well, purple whole peas actually are beans. They're just a name. Now, I believe these come from Africa, is the original origination of these things, but they are an amazing plant. If you've ever been in the South, these things are as popular as can be. In fact, when I was a kid, we used to shell these all the time, had them all the time. They're amazing, they're amazing. The beans are very, here's one I just picked. They're very glossy. They're purple, and they will sting your thumbs when you pick them green like this. There's also another way, though. You can get them dried, and here I'll pull one off here if I can find my scissors. Here's a good dry one. Yeah? Dried, right? Same color, but can you hear it? Much harder. Now, there's one other way that you can actually consume these, and that's as a green bean. There's one here. These are at the very end of the season. I'm getting ready to pull them out. I could get more in harvest, but I don't really need any more. I want to plant kind of a late summer, early fall garden, so I'm going to pull them, but you can also get them green. Now, these are just like green beans. You can saute them. You can do anything you can do with a green bean. They even great raw. Now, when it comes to saving seeds, it's very simple with these. I like to let the pods dry on the plant. Why do I do that? Can I pick them when they're fully ripe, put them in the counter, do something like that? Yes, I can. The problem is they're more likely to mold, in my opinion. By keeping them on the plant, it goes through a natural process. It dries them out, it gets them ready to go to seed, like they would do in nature. And so that's what I like to do. In this case, all I do is break open the pod, and I dropped one. And now, I don't know if you can see those or not. Yeah? They're very, very small. They look like black-eyed peas. In fact, they're kin to black-eyed peas. But they're already dry. This is how you would find those bags of beans in the store, right? The things that people were hoarding, right? Big bags of beans. They didn't even know how to cook dry. I prefer them dry anyway, even during regular season, to be honest. However, leaving them to dry early season doesn't allow them to produce as much. So, give or take. This is a really simple way to save seeds for next year. Beans, they're easy. Let them dry out, and then you pull them out of the pod. Now, number 2 on our list is peas. Now, these are young peas here. I have a trellis for them to grow up. I planted these a little bit early. But peas are the exact same concept as beans. You can either pick them yourself, let them dry out inside, or you can let them go brown on the vine or plant, however you look at it, whatever you're growing. Now, here's the thing. These plants can be eaten as green pods, just like you did a green bean, except it's a little different, maybe like edamame or something like that you've seen. You can shell the peas out, which is the sweet peas that you would normally find. you know, in canned goods or what have you, or again, you can dry them. These are really, really great to plant next season with kids. In fact, you can plant them in the spring. Now here, I'm in the south, okay, so September, my frost date isn't until the 15th of November, so I have plenty of time. I can grow these for a long time. You may have to grow them in spring where you are. If you can, or you haven't started them yet, be prepared. Let one of these dry out some pods, save them for next year. Sweet peas are a great one to save. Number 3 is okra. Okra has a beautiful flower. It's a kind of a southern delicacy, I think. I know people use it all over the world, but here in the South, we love it fried and battered, and we absolutely love it in gumbos. But this happens to be a crimson spineless, which is probably one of the most popular and longest growing, probably in history, okra that we know as, you know, home growers. These things are interesting. Now it's full. You can see there's a flower here. We got a bunch of buds here. There's a small okra here. There's some more in the back. And I've also got this very large okra. Now, crimson spineless is supposed to be less woody, but if you let it get to this long length, it gets really woody, and you can't even eat it. Even if you put it in a stew, you can't eat it. But if you pick them small, you can. Now, as you can see down here, I've actually saved some seeds and let them dry out. Now, the interesting thing about these seeds is that, again, when they dry out, it makes them easier to collect. Now in this case, you can see here, can you hear it? You can hear the seeds rolling around. Now if I just take and pull that out and get a couple of seeds, here, I've just cut the top off. Here we go. Here's a couple of seeds. They're not very big. Let me put this down. They're not very big seeds. Yeah? Okay? They're smaller than sweet peas, but they're very hard and very black. These seeds are also extremely easy to save. They come up really easily. These things grow great in the heat. It's not something that you could plant this time of year unless you're in a southern climate. I could probably plant these now and get a small crop out of them. And if you have the seeds and you want to do it, you certainly can. Just don't expect a lot of food out of it. And you'll have to let probably the very first ones that come up go to seed. And you want to make a little bit of selection with them too, so it may not be the best idea. Here, I could probably grow them and get like I said, a small harvest out of them, but I certainly wouldn't have time to let them go to seed. These things love the heat. They grow prolifically. Fantastic plants to save seed. Number 4 is peppers. Peppers are a great plant, and most people grow them. In fact, they're very easy to grow. I don't ever really have any problem with bugs or funguses or anything else. They just grow really well. They need sun and they need water. Now this plant here has a bunch of green peppers on it. You can see it here, and like I said, it's mid-September. Okay, lots of them, and I've let this one go red. You can see it. Let it go red. The reason I've let it go red, well, is 2 reasons. Number 1, I love to make an amazing fermented salsa with these jalapenos, and I know they're not hot when they're red typically, but these things get really hot when you ferment them. Anyway, the other thing to do is to let it actually dry out and go to seed. Now, peppers are a little bit different, and really, there's not a whole lot of really simple ways to let these dry out. What I like to do is let them get to the point that they're very, very dried out. They may start to harden a bit on the end, and then I'll take them inside. Now, if you can place them inside, we've got some air conditioning running, something to dry out the air. It'll keep them from molding. You need to keep them out of the sun, but don't put them in complete dark either. They don't need a lot of direct sunlight. For instance, if you look here, these are some cayennes that I've already let dry out. I pulled these from the plant when they were very, very ripe and starting to shrivel, but not mold. I took them inside, laid them on a paper towel, and now, as you can see, they're very dry. The seeds in here, I can break open the shell, and they're perfect. You can use these seeds for next year, which I will do, or you can use the seeds and peppers themselves for an amazing peppery oil. All right, now let's talk a minute. Saving seeds sounds really easy, right? And it really kind of is. It's a simple concept. Nature does it all the time. But there are a few things to keep in mind when we save seeds out of our garden. One of those is buying transplants. Transplants oftentimes are hybrid plants. Now, you don't always know they're hybrid. They used to label them all the time, but you might have to do some research to find out. If it is a hybrid plant, chances are the seed's not going to come true to the plant next year, which basically means you're going to get something when you plant it, but it probably won't be like the parent you pulled it from. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing either. Another thing that's important and to keep in mind is cross-pollination. If I plant 6 or 7 different kinds of tomatoes, they may cross-pollinate. I'll actually get a new hybrid next year. Now, that doesn't mean I can't save the seed. Again, they very well could come up the same, but probably not. But there are some things that can prevent all of this. The first thing is to make sure that you have an heirloom seed. Now, you hear it all the time. What's heirloom mean? It's just an old, true variety that's been tried and true for years and years and years. In fact, the purple hull peas that we talked about earlier, those were passed down in my family. They were grown when I was a kid. This is the same strain. It was given to me by my aunt about 10 or 15 years ago when I started gardening. And it still comes true every year. It's amazing. It's an absolutely amazing plant. Now, you can buy heirlooms, but you can also use your fruited plants to do the same thing. Now, if you have an open pollinated plant, you still have the problem, right? Well, the way to solve that problem is small bags. When you take and pollinate your flowers, pollinate themselves. Tomatoes are a great example. Take your tomatoes, stick your finger in each one of the flowers on a single head, a little bunch of flowers, and pollinate it with your finger. You can use a Q-tip, whatever you like. Once that's done, do it as soon as they open. Put a mesh bag of some sort, tie it tight over the stem so they're all encapsulated in the bag, and let it sit. As soon as the fruit sets, you can remove that bag. Mark those fruit because you know those were pollinated only by its own variety, okay? You can then save those seeds and get that same plant next year. Now, obviously heirlooms is the way to go, but if you don't and you're not sure what you're going to get, plant them anyway. Plant them anyway. It's good practice to learn to save seeds and be ready for next year. Don't ever be scared of that. All right, guys, listen. I know they're all gathered around to see the extra. Actually, what they have their eyes on is our bonus, number 5 seed that you can save. This is a little more complicated, but it does work, and that's tomato. Now this, we already ate most of this last night. This is what was left over. This is actually an indeterminate heirloom potato that I have, and if you can see the seeds, or in that gooey little mass right there. You see that? So that stuff that's there, that is it's basically a seeding inhibitor or a germinating inhibitor. And what that does, that ensures that the tomato reaches full ripeness when it drops or to the ground so that it can germinate for next year. Now, it also protects if an animal is to eat it. So if you were to eat the seeds and it goes through your digestive tract, the seed would be protected. So we have to get that off, right? There's a way to do that, and it's called fermenting. Now, there's a couple of things that you need. You need a little bit of water, obviously your tomato, and the other important thing is any kind of vessel. It can be glass, it can be plastic, doesn't matter. I have a jar here. Now what we're going to do, there's actually a couple other things. We'll get to that in a minute. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these seeds, okay, and I'm going to put them in here. Now I'm just going to use my finger to push them out. And here, I'll come up here so you can see it. Yeah, just use my finger to push the seeds out. Some more up here. Goo and all, yeah? So when it falls in there, you've got your seeds in there. Now I'll put a few more. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of water. Not much, just a little bit, just enough to cover it, okay? It doesn't matter if you got some big chunks of tomato in there or whatever. Just add a little bit of water to make sure that it's covered. Now, there's a couple things you can use. These things need to ferment for a couple of days. And the reason that is because the fermentation process, kind of like it going through your gut, pulls all that gelatinous mass off of it and allows the germination to happen for next year. So there's a couple things you can use. You can use a fermenting lid like this. I use these for all kinds of other things. Or you can use a lid with a hole in it and a water stop. Now, the easiest thing to do, though, you guys probably don't have these, and if you do, you can order them, that's fine, but the easiest thing to do is to simply take a coffee filter, put it on top or cheesecloth, put a rubber band around this, and let it sit for 3 days. After 3 days, the seeds will have sunk to the bottom. In most varieties, some float to the top, but once they've sunk to the bottom, you're ready to go. All you do then is you drain out the water, strain the seeds, make sure you get any mush off of them, lay them out on a paper plate. I don't recommend a paper towel. You can lay them on a counter or maybe a synthetic or plastic cutting board, but you don't want something that will stick to the seed, something that will allow it to dry out. So in this case, if you put it on a paper plate, spread them out, allow them to dry inside until they're completely dry. Then you can store your seeds. Now let's talk about that storing of seeds. You can put them anywhere. You can put them in a plastic bag. You can just leave them in a jar, what have you. I prefer paper, like an envelope. They actually have seed-saving packs that you can get on Amazon, very cheap. And the reason I prefer that, though, is because it allows the seed to breathe. If it's not completely dried out and you put it in the plastic bag, it could mold. And mold's not good for fermentation. Guys, it's a scary world. There's no doubt about it. Things like this can go out of nowhere, just like it did in 2020 with the pandemic, with COVID-19. But guys, there's no reason to be scared. There's no reason to be worried about it, okay? We can be cautiously aware, but we can use our own knowledge and the knowledge of other people to make sure that we're safe through these times. Guys, there's only 4 really important things in life. Number 1, you have to believe in something. Number 2, you need someone to love. Number 3, you need something to do. And number 4, you need something to look forward to. Guys, I appreciate you being here, visiting me in my garden, and I can't wait to see you next time. All right, that's it. Doc out.